Ben. A lot of people know me in the Belagarth realms as Aries. And I'll be doing a presentation for you on Dystopia Rising, specifically in SoCal. We kind of want to stress that just because each flavor of a chapter is different, and SoCal has a lot of things to offer and does things in kind of a different manner, not in a different manner of game, but it definitely has a different flavor to the rest of the world. Dystopia Rising is a national LARP and has chapters all around the country. So I just want to stress that this is kind of a little bit of a deeper dive into what goes on with the game and in SoCal. So this is me. I am actually dressed in my garb today. Some people refer to it as costume. I'm just going to use the term garb just because the majority of this audience is going to be familiar with that term. My real name is Ben Jurek. I've been LARPing for close to 15 years. Since 2006, I started in Amp Guard. I've served all across the board as in roles in very different LARPs. I even founded the Amp Guard chapter out in Vegas. So Terra Devotum, if you know the guys from there, there's a lot of cross gamers that play both games. So I actually founded that chapter, and I also have played a lot of Belagarth and Dega here, and attend Battle for the Ring and all sorts of other stuff. And I've even come out to like an Andril raid back in the day, but that was years ago. Been doing this for a long time. I've actually been doing DR for just about 6 years. I started in late 2014. And I've been playing ever since. The last game that I got to play in was February before the pandemic hit. I've served all over different positions in that game, from story marshal, ops marshal, and even helping out with some of their national games. So just to clear up some of those a little bit, an ops marshal is a lot like a dungeon master. Since this is more of a role-playing game than it is just a combat game. And a story marshal has a more like on the ground running modules position with their NPCs. And here's a quick little trailer video. If none of you have seen that, this will be the thing I kind of intro us in on and go from there because, well, it makes us look good.
You heard about our town? Lovely place. Never a dull moment. Lots of colorful characters.
But I know I'll see your face again.
But if you came here for shelter, to find some safety within these walls, thinking you've seen the worst this world has to offer,
it's all timing in Dystopia Rising.
You ain't seen shit.
So that is the trailer that we use locally for our site. You'll see the name Eldorado, and that's the name that we've chosen, similar to Andril. So that is our chapter, and you may be asking what exactly is Dystopia Rising. It's kind of hard to determine that from that trailer, so I'm here to kind of extrapolate on that and tell you exactly what this LARP is. It is a LARP. It's an actually live action role playing game. It's fully immersive and spans over 3 days, typically starting on a Friday night and ending in a Sunday afternoon. We exist in an open world post-apocalyptic universe. So we're talking like 7 generations after what they would call the fall. Or what exactly happened with the fall? That there's actually some in-game elements and things to learn as your character for that. We commonly call that type of knowledge FOIG. And a lot of it is more just best guess player theory. It's more player driven than it is actually like plot driven. With the universe it's in, you're talking about
Hi,
like,
Milo.
hello? Oh, sorry. It's very open world. It's going to be very zombie-esque, very post-nuclear apocalypse type of deal. So zombies exist in it, monstrous creatures exist in it, but there's also, just like if you're playing a Fallout game, there's also factions of people that exist in this world. There's also it's fought with a boffer and nerf combat system as far as combat goes. You're going to have your boffer swords, any of your Belagarth equipment will definitely work there, and any standard standard nerf gun stuff will work there. This game does involve having character sheets and build and experience points and actually building a character over time. Having an older character is more to your benefit because you're going to have more experience points and be able to do more things with that. And then as far as how you spend your weekend, it's one of the better social activities I could ever recommend to somebody. The groups and friendships that you form and just like the teamwork and getting around and meeting different people. I recommend it more than anything. The SoCal chapter, for example, pulls anywhere from 90 to 300 people, depending on what time of year and which season we are in. So the greatest they ever hit was 300. I think right now they pull around in that 80 mark. How is it different from Belagarth? I was brought here to do a presentation as someone who has experience in both games to kind of, discuss with people with a background. So it's going to have a lightest touch combat system. That's the biggest difference there. When I say lightest touch, I mean you're going to throw a sword shot, and you can't throw super heat on it. You're going to throw a sword shot, and then it's going to hit them. If any part of anything they have, such as their own weapon or shield, blocks it, it's blocked. So it's very easy to be defensive in this game, but also like throwing good shots, you're still going to hit your opponent. This is a monthly game. It's not a game that meets every week or every couple of days in some people's cases, but it's a monthly game. It has an entry fee. It's a 3-day event every single month. It isn't just something that you do every week. It's something you do every month. Now, could you play it every week? If you have the travel and the funds, you could probably find someplace in the country playing it. And there are people that do that. I've been a maniac before and attended 7 games in a row. It's insane. But you have these 3-day events are of about 40 hours is what the game ends up being. It's a franchise game. It's a paid system. So there is a company behind this. There is an LLC. Each of these chapters are part of the franchise, and it does have a cost. The first game is only $20, and then your second game is $40, and you can choose to spend additional money to buy extra XP or pay for additional characters, etc. The cost structure changes in the most recent update and edition of the game. It's gotten a bit more friendly as far as playing multiple characters goes. But that's kind of one of the big things that people are going to be like, oh, what's going on here? And I want to stress the fact that this covers a lot. This actually is cheaper than majority of Belagarth and Amcard events I go to, just the fact that this covers your room and board. You're going to go camp somewhere. This covers that camping fee. So you don't need to worry about anything beyond that, on top of the fact of what you're paying for the game. And most of that money goes toward props and production and everything else. So the game's a bit more high production than you would expect from other LARPs. As I expressed earlier, there's XP, there's character builds. It's similar to it's far more in the tabletop realm of things than it is in the film combat game of things. There is a health system. You do have to, hit people a certain amount of times or do a certain amount of damage to someone to bring them down. That includes the majority of the monsters, enemies, and such. One thing that was huge for me when I started in the game was the fact there's an in-game economy. There's a ton of different resources. There's a ton of rare resources. There's different types, from scrap to herbs to various types of things there. And there's dozens of every type. And then there's ones that are unique to certain parts of the country. On top of that, all these places have their own unique currency. So California has the ticket, such as movie ticket. And there's actually like a full currency system. So some people literally just play the game for the economy. I ran a pizza place. I cooked frozen pizzas out of a pizza oven and sold them for in-game currency. So it's a lot of fun. One huge thing is I know that next to zero Belagarthers, I'll, with the exception of like the monster group, don't really play characters or immerse themselves into a character name or attitude or personality. This is a fully in-character game. When we say game on at around 8 p.m. Until noon Sunday, we want you to be in character. Your every conversation you have, everything you do that isn't like going to the bathroom or like sleeping, you're going to be in character. So people are going to call you by your character name. You're going to act like your character. You're going to do everything you can to be like that. So you get that full immersion, you get that full like set in, and when it's done well, people aren't breaking character and everyone's playing along with the same system, it becomes very convincing and very easy to think and be your character than it is to just like say you're at like a D&D table and talking like your character for a few seconds. Now this is the real deal. It goes quite a bit deeper than your typical roleplay experience. What are some of the similarities? It's still foam fighting. In that picture there, I'm the guy in the gray tunic and with a purple understripe there. That's me at Battle for the Ring. I'm standing next to Taco. There's Kevin behind me. I think that's like Battle for the Ring 2017 or something like that. So I know how to. My teeth's cut on fighting. I used to do a lot of fighting, so don't be afraid to ask questions or anything about that. So the foam fighting is definitely not as intense. Good fighters actually find themselves pretty comfortable with the system as long as they're not looking to like inflict pain on somebody else or they're looking for the high intensity style of combat. But you actually will find yourself very at home and somewhat skilled. If you want to play a combatant style of character, you can. You don't need to play a combatant style of character. You can play a non-com or somewhere in between. The game doesn't rely on you being combatant. But the game will try to affect you with zombies and bad things. You have to have a way to produce that, to fight against those things, whether you're producing resources or being more of a medic or something along those lines. There are chapters all across the country, just like Belagarth and Dega here. There's this is a national system. You can travel anywhere, and you're probably going to be somewhat close to a place that hosts a game. In my travels around the country, the average game attendance is anywhere between 50 to 60 people to 200 plus. So your experience will vary wildly. I would say expect a 70 plus to 100 game, 100 person attendance at these games. They have national events that get even bigger. And they usually hold them, once or twice a year, and highly recommend going to those, meeting people from around the country, all the different flavors, convening over the particular story and plot of that weekend it's some of the finer points of this game. Weapon construction, very similar. We have kite spar and a lot of other such, blue foam. The main difference here is the fact that the rules are less strict on the DR side. You can have less padding, you can use plastidip, you can get creative, you can paint stuff. A lot of people like to make fake post-apocalypse weapons like buzz saws and wrenches and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff you'd see in the Fallout and other like post-apoc universes. And we're all nerds. There's a lot of cross gaming. In that trailer, you probably might have recognized a few people actually that I know play Belagarth in Southern California and Adondero. So we're all nerds. A lot of us are going to be in very similar hobbies, and you're going to feel at home. These are people of your ilk. I know LARP can be a bad word for some people, but at the end of the day, we're all just swinging foam. a little bit deeper dive into the game and the lore and what we're looking at here. This game has religions, it has strains, it has technology and psionics, and there's a bunch of other stuff. So first off, religions. There's over a half a dozen of them. The logos I put up there are actually logos of the majority of the religions. And we have anywhere from the Church of the Telling Visions to the Darwins to the Nuclear Family, the King's Court, the Sainthood, and the Final Knights. And each of them kind of like grabbed onto something from the old world and mutated it, is the best term I could think of, into something that people worship. And all these faiths have tenets and sects, and everything actually gets really, really deep with these stories. And they're opposed to each other. There's a lot of some of these religions. They don't have the symbol for the for I forgot their name. God dang it. But there's sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Like the Darwins don't get along with some of the other religions, while the Telling Visionists and such don't get along with each other. So there's driven in conflict. And there's the Final Knights, which are kind of the bad guys. They're more of the like, this is hell type of universe. I can go pretty deep in these religions. My character is part of the Nuclear Family, and I also had another character named Hunley that was part of the Final Knights. The King's Court religion revolves around music. The Sainthood religion revolves around old world religions, actually, like kind of took them and blended them together and made its own religion. The Telling Visionists are more of like an old world TV thing. So they consider like scripts and tales from pop culture and movies and such to be scripture. Like that's what they hold on to, and they have their own tenets. And the Darwins worship, for the most part, like evolution and radiation in particular. I can't believe I forgot the name of the other religion, but they're super militant and they don't get along with anyone. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on that. I played this game for 6 years. But then there's strains, and all these strains have lineages. Strains are very similar to what you would expect to see from races in other games. So how other games have elves and orcs and such, strains are their own thing there too. So what a strain is it kind of gives your character their definitive look and some definitive traits. I played a Vegassian as my main character. Vegassians come from the region, obviously Vegas, and are known for being, slick dealers, liars, cheaters, etc., and for dressing gaudy and wearing animal print. So, ta-da! It really helps people build their character, and it's really nice to be able to walk onto anybody playing, be like, oh, that's a Lascarian. Those guys are cannibals and people that hang out in caves in the dark and such. And then look at somebody else and be like, oh, that's a full dead. They're a zombie that's not quite a zombie. And there are plenty of strains to play with, and you can kind of view the rule book for that. I can go deeper in them in the Q&A, but this is a 1-hour presentation, so I can't do an incredibly deep dive. But we do have our own our own system that plays similar to other RPGs out there, just in post-apocalypse. The game is post-fall, so the majority of technology does not exist. It's not cyberpunk. It's far more on the you're going to have your old world Fallout style tech. I'm going to keep referencing Fallout because it's the easiest thing to draw to, but we can't reference Fallout in the game because, IP reasons. But it's going to be very 1950s up until you'll find stuff from, the most recent generation that the fall happened, but it won't work. All your computerized stuff, all the chips are all fried. Small examples where you're going to be able to see stuff that didn't, but the majority of the world is like that. It's kind of the universe you exist in. Psionics are a major topic within the game. Where you get these powers from and how those powers happen are very story driven, and they somewhat come from the overall overarching thing of the main thing that people want to see as the enemy is the Mortis Amaranthium, aka the Gravemind. That's the thing that all the zombies spawn from. This is the thing that kind of makes the world exist the way it is that Gravemind. The game has a lot of story to it. Some of these stories are very player driven. So more of a role play situation of this group and this group kind of have made their own story about why they don't like each other or why they like each other, or someone took an idea and ran with it, and they made their own holiday. Like I've seen the craziest things happen as far as like player driven story goes. But there's also story driven by the story team, the dungeon masters, these marshals as we call them, and these story writers write story typically in a series of modules. And it tells the story of the weekend, and then a lot of times you always have the story of the overarching season. So from one part of the year till for the following year, they're going to have an overarching story with a finale and everything else. So it's really fun to get involved in that. I always suggest people to chase plot, get involved, invest. The more you put in, the more you get out. That is actually generally the truth among any role play situation, whether you're interacting with story or interacting with other people. You're going to get more. You're going to get more out of it the more you put in. One thing I did is I ran a town newspaper that was 12 pages. I put a lot of work into it. I had a lot of fun with it. People bought ads in it and wrote their own articles, and it was. I said we made the universe come alive. You very much felt like you were truly getting away from something when you played this game. And when I talk about stories, there's also national stories that kind of revolve around the world, and you can have certain things happen in certain regions that completely change the landscape of the game. And your player's choices can actually change how the game plays. A lot of the way the universe is today in the current game system is based on choices that players made years ago. So you truly do control where the game goes as far as story and direction. So how do you play? You've decided that you want to try and come out and play. So DR SoCal exists right outside Riverside, California, at the Cronenberg Renaissance Festival Village, and some people know it as Crossroads Riverview Park. And really, honestly, just show up. You don't need to know a whole ton. We do have new player marshals, people that their specific staff position is to assist people in getting ready and getting started in this game. I can get you the contact information, but we do have people specifically put to set you up. But at the same time, it doesn't take a whole lot to get started. Bring up some torn up clothes from someone that looks like, they just crawled out of a bomb shelter. And if you know what strain you want to play, dress as what your strain would be. But you can always change those decisions later. You're never locked into anything, especially as a new player. You're going to make a character sheet. New player character sheets are a lot easier than older player character sheets. And once again, you have a few months to figure it out before you're locked in on that. That's something I do need to stress. When there is a point where you become locked in, you can't change your mind and re-roll. You show up, make your character sheet, and then bring the gear you're going to need. The gear you're going to need outside of that is, if you know what weapon you're going to use, you can bring a weapon of that size. We have size categories such as small, large, etc. Very similar to Belagarth with, you have your daggers, shorts, two-handers, stuff like that. Bring your weapon, bring a costume, and then this is going to be more of a camping event than anything. So bring everything you need to, eat, sleep, and exist for 40 hours. You can leave site at any point you want. You aren't locked in. You can go get, Subway or whatever and come back. No one's going to fault you for that. You're not, you just might miss a module or something, but not a big deal. So you don't need to completely plan around like hoofing it out of your tent and such. But you should have a plan to at least be able to feed yourself and somewhere to sleep. There are buildings on site that a lot of people rent. If you know one of those people, feel free to rent a space. But if you're coming and don't know anybody, you want to have a good time, you can just get a tent there. And there's also obviously hotels and such and Airbnbs nearby. So you don't need to stay on site, but the most immersive experience is going to be never leaving, especially when zombies are eating people right outside your tent. You choose not to come out because you don't want to die, and then you listen to that person die. It's fantastic. Or you can actually go help them. I don't know. And then you have to have a plan for your NPC shift. NPCs typically wear all black. so we can wear their costumes or makeup or such. So bring a set of blacks, bring a set for your costume, and then the stuff to exist for a weekend, whether it be medication, anything you would need for camping. So what does a day look like? How does a day play out? The game runs with modules. You have typically about 3 modules an hour that run, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the amount of NPCs and how big of a place it is. These modules usually rotate or kind of flow around one of 3 topics. You're usually looking at either a combat module, a puzzle module, or a roleplay module, and sometimes one turns into the other, and sometimes you involve both, or modules actually are designed to collide with each other and make something else happen, like such as this puzzle triggers this combat module, or this puzzle is this combat module. So you kind of have a different theme and different strokes for different folks. So some people don't really want to get that involved with roleplay modules. And they go do something else, or some people are just like, oh, I really don't like this puzzle, or there's too many people on it. Then you got to remember, this is a 200 some person game sometimes, and maybe you don't want to hoof it along and figure out these puzzles with these people. But the puzzles I put together for this are sometimes gigantic and can take the full weekend, because you'll have certain like key quest pieces drop at certain times of day, and like you might be the one that finds a piece of wreckage in the middle of a field, and like, what do I do now? So it can get pretty crazy. You have a very open world. I want to stress that more than enough, that this is a very player driven and player created world. You are logging into this server essentially, and at this point you can kind of do whatever you want. You don't need interactive plot. You never need to touch a module. For the most part, like with what I like to doing, I didn't interact with the modules unless they interacted with me, and those are usually the combat modules, such as like raiders coming into town and trying to tear stuff up and steal stuff, or the major storylines of just like, oh, we have to go fight this big monster. There's a lot of the time I just hang out with my friends, and we stay in character and goof off, and we might enact in CVC. My character at multiple points was mayor of the town. I had kind of a reputation of being a mob boss. So there was shady things that my people like to do, such as stealing from one another and murders and all that other fun stuff. The game, which I didn't mention earlier, is infection based, aka those are your lives. Your character can die a certain amount of times throughout their lifetime, but that's lifetime. That's not per day. That's like, if my character dies 4 times, that's it. They're gone, dead. You retire them, and you re-roll a new character. So just like in other tabletops, you're only looking at having a limited time that your character might be playable. That some people really love that. Some people don't like that so much. My character's still around after all these years, but I know a lot of characters that just aren't. The game has a lot of resources aside from your infection. Infection, you'll find out, might be a resource. It might be a way to gain it back. And as I mentioned earlier, there's also a lot of resources, such as stuff you're going to use to craft items. Crafting in this game is paramount. It's how you get your weapons. It's how you get your gear. It's how you get special items. All these items all interact to do something. Like in order to create something, you need to make the thing that creates that. You need to make workbenches. You need to make forges. You need to make stills to distill potions, and most of it's referred to as booze. But you need to make these distilleries to make these drugs to keep people alive. Because just like in traditional role-playing game systems, we do have all of those things, and you do need to make them. So there is this huge background of people working to keep up with this and working to basically keep people alive and running. And there's a lot of consumables that you're going to go through as your characters, and they need to be made. So there's a huge economy surrounding that. Stuff expires also. And there's also plot demanded stuff where, like, hey, you have to help these farmers. They're either asking you to do this, or this, and then sometimes you just answer it by throwing money at them. So there's a lot of answers. There's a lot of free play to go with here, but think outside the box. There's a lot to do. There's also your NPC shift that you're going to play at some point during your day. It's typically a 4 to 6 hour shift, and this is your time to be one of those zombies, to be one of the bad guys, to be a raider, to be a merchant that comes into town, to be maybe a shady dealer, to do any sort of thing. NPC roles can vary very wildly, from like super insane comedy stuff of like someone going around at 3 a.m. just to be annoying so people get out of their tents and kill them, to someone that is playing a very serious role and has very serious like information to give to you. And if you let the murder hobos randomly murder them, that could be really bad. Every action has a consequence. Don't want to stress that enough. You can't just go doing whatever you want. If someone dies, someone might miss that person. Or don't forget, people have lives. They come back. That person's going to come back and be like, these guys killed me, and now you have to deal with it. And how's your town handle murder? There's laws, there's politics. Politics is something I even forgot to put in this presentation. There's usually a lot of politics around this. People have to elect who their leaders are or how they want the town to run. It gets super deep, and like I said, I've spent thousands of hours playing this, so I don't want to get too into the weeds because I'm just trying to do a basic presentation. But there's a lot to do. With being so much to do, there's almost no sleep. There are weekends I slept maybe 6 out of the 40 hours a game. It's insane. So you're all Bellegarthers, at least the people I'm presenting to today, and I expect to be Bellegarthers. What do you want to know about the combat? Here's what we got. It's light touch. I already went over that. The ranged combat is not foam arrows, but instead it's either nerf, anything store-bought, anything stock will work. Some places allow more modified stuff. I believe SoCal does testing on it. I don't know what they're doing as of today, but if you brought like a modified Nerf gun, you might need to have it tested. The buff rules are less strict. You can get away with some really light shields and some really cool looking stuff. It needs to be somewhat padded, but you're not looking at the extreme rules that you expect from Bellegarth, where it needs to pass certain hit tests and whatnot. This game has abilities, as it has a mind pool or a mana pool. It's referred to as mind in this game. You have the ability to inflict significantly more damage or to deflect blows. The most common one currently is a void. So if you hit me with like a major attack and I had the mind pool, I can just call it a void and it didn't hit me. That's just how it works. But there's also tons of other abilities that are completely non-combat related. But we're going to focus on the combat ones here. But like I can have my sword deal, significantly more damage, or 5 to 10 times more the damage than one swing would normally do. In the current edition of the game, you can, if you hit somebody with a sword, they take 1 point of damage. That's what it is. You don't need to call numbers. In previous editions of games, you called numbers for the damage you're dealing, but currently you just hit them and they take it. If someone has 20 HP, they just need to get hit 20 times. We do have a flurry system. So the flurry system means I can take 3 strikes or 6 strikes if I have 2 weapons. And then I have to take a brief pause. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, pause, 1, 2, 3, pause. I can't just hit them repeatedly or do any drum rolling or anything crazy like that. So there's a flurry system. It does slow things down quite a bit, but it makes the game playable and understandable, especially as an NPC. When you're getting hit, you can actually keep track of what's happening to you. And the thing I want to share, the majority of the combat is with NPCs. There's not a lot of CVC. It's a very small amount of CVC. Majority of the fighting you're going to be doing against is against the bad guys, whether it be another faction of dudes, whether it be zombies, whether it be raiders, whether it be monster creatures. There's, the range of enemies is wide, but the people you're going to be hitting with your stick are an NPC shift. Or if you're an NPC, the people you're going to be hitting are actually the people. And this is where it becomes really fun for cross gamers, because Bellegarthers and Amgarters and such make some super mean NPCs. Like if you want to amp up the difficulty of a mod, you put those fighters on a mod and the town's going to have a hard time. So it becomes Dark Souls in some cases. And these people that, they're not good at swinging a stick now have to fight people that are really great at swinging stick. And it becomes a very interesting experience. I've had a lot of fun with it, but I've also gotten in trouble for it because some people aren't looking for that challenge or aren't expecting their character to die right there. Because that's, a situation where characters might experience death. As I mentioned earlier, we have the health and mind pools as I go down my slide. And there's also an armor system. So I'm wearing armor right now. Armor kind of just a value that lays over your health pool. Armor is easier to repair than health is easier to recover. So, and then you also, once again, have to build that armor. And what type of armor do you have? There's like, just like any other like RPG, like World of Warcraft or something, you have really low tier armor and the really high tier armor. Really high tier armor is obviously very expensive and very resource intensive, or was a major loot drop of some sort. As I mentioned with NPC shift, there's, you have your time on it. It depends on what you purchased. But this is also where people such as the logistics people who actually run the post office and are all that little background work of you be like, oh, hey, I farmed for an hour. Here's where it shows in my character sheet. And they give you herbs. That's how you get your stuff. People that do that are on NPC shift. People who are essentially, being your dungeon master for that shift, that's your NPC shift. Like, so this is secretly what makes the game run in the background. The well-oiled machine, in some cases not so well-oiled, but well-oiled machine that makes the game work. So it's absolutely necessary. Some people are like, oh, NPC shift, I don't want to play. There is an opt-out in some cases. It just costs more. I actually very much enjoy NPC shift. I've learned to enjoy it. Some people don't. But as foam fighters, I find the majority of foam fighters enjoy NPC shift because it's your time to wreak havoc upon your friends in town. The site that we play at in SoCal is the Cronenberg Festival Grounds. It has city streets and alleyways and buildings and plays a lot more as an urban landscape or urban like Wild West outlaw type thing than other games. Other games are played at like Boy Scout camps or various other places, but I've played in places as crazy as an abandoned school. So there's been, the sites change wildly. The NorCal game was played out of a airsoft field that was a former like army base. So super awesome background. Site actually helps make everything. It's closed completely off from the public. So unlike the Boffer LARPs, you're not playing at a park. There's no public. You can scream blood curdling murder as loud as you want. You can do whatever you like. There's no randoms going to walk onto there. The gate is shut. You exist in this universe. This is your time to play. This is one of the premier LARP sites in the US. There are several other LARPs that come out of there, including Twin Mask. I understand that Twin Mask is huge. DR used to be bigger. And there's a lot of cross gameplay with that. Twin Mask has become a juggernaut, and now they're the premier game that plays out of this site. And then we have, on to my last slide. This game has helped me build some of the best friendships and some of the best social networks that I have. If I need a couch to sleep on anywhere in the country, it'll likely be from a DR player that knows me. I travel all around the country to almost every chapter in this game, from Florida to Texas to California, obviously, to Washington, to New Jersey, to Wisconsin. I've attended the majority of these games. And the people I've met are, they're lifelong friends. And the people that I've met in SoCal and the relationships I have fostered, I will never not have them. It's been one of the greatest experiences for me, which is why I'm so passionate about this game. There's lots of opportunity in every chapter, and there's lots of things to enjoy. I recommend to people that if they enjoy their time here, really try elsewhere. A lot of my friends actually started out as players and now have either like ownership roles or other roles where like this is becoming part of their life. Like this actually is part of their income and in career is actually like owning and running a LARP, which is crazy. But some of my friends do this now, and I want to support them. So obviously enjoy the product they make, so I go and play it. You'll find people from all walks of life playing this, from super high-end like business execs to the kid down the street. It is an adult game. You do need permission if you're younger than 18 to play, but you meet everybody from all walks of life, and it's not nearly as punishing to older folk. You know, if you have someone who just wants to like come hang out and, you know, cook for people all weekend, and like they're not, you know, physically able to do a lot of combat such, that this is something they can do. So it's a very inclusive environment, and has a lot of people, different people that play it, and it's really cool to meet those people and travel the world. And it's also really cool to like hear names to put names to faces and stuff like that, because I've met people that they knew of my character because my character has some renown, but they've never met me, and they're like, "Oh, you're a Booker," and it's one of the greatest feelings ever, really. And then I think I'm gonna enter my Q&A session. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to say something.
Carbs, I think your headset's muted.
Wonderful. Thank you, Beetle. Can you hear me now? Yes?
I can hear you.
Okay, so, oh man, that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Aries. I love the PowerPoint. Yeah, applause from our audience for sure. So my first question as a Bellegrim, something that I really, really enjoy about my game is I can block shots with like either my weapons or like I have shields often. Is that something that can be done in Dystopia Rising? Can you block incoming damage from
Actually,
just?
it's far easier to be defensive. I did cover that. Of just like if it touches anything from my weapon to my hand-on weapon to my shield, even just the rim of it, first contact is what makes the block.
Oh, nice.
So it's actually way easier to block. The game also doesn't have stabbing. Forgot to mention that. So between the fact that a swing has to come in and there's no stabbing, it's super easy to be defensive. A good sword and border is going to do really well. Now, it's not a hit location based game, which I could have done more in presentation. It's an HP based game, so a leg shot is just as good as a chest shot. So you're going to see a lot more tower shields and stuff like that here.
That makes sense. That's an interesting meta. Are there? Is the head a target area in Dystopia Rising?
The head is definitely not a target area.
Not a target area. Is the groin a target area in Dystopia Rising?
I mean, someone will get hit in the dick. I don't believe most people ever take that though, as far as damage and such goes.
Gotcha. Just comparing it to Bellegarth, and target locations, is the hand or the foot on the ground a target area in Dystopia Rising?
Neither of those are, no.
That's wonderful. It's good to know. Yeah, wonderful. That was my question. I'll give it to the audience if they have any more, and then I'll ask you more if they don't. So does any of our audience members have any questions? Okay, I have a question about culture, I guess. I imagine this might change depending on where you are playing because it's across the nation, but how is your LARP about alcohol use on site?
Unfortunately for the Belgrim, almost every event is dry.
Almost everything
I don't believe I've ever played in a DR game that allowed alcohol. Most of them, they want, since you are playing a character and you could be attacked at any point in time, there is a stress of safety. There is a stress of they don't want people being drunk and breaking their character. Now, can you role play drunk? Absolutely. That is encouraged. There's high proof booze and such that exists in the game. But as far as being under the influence of anything, no, that is patently not allowed.
Interesting. Well, that's cool. It definitely appeals to a lot of the people who even play our game. I know for one, I've played Dystopia Rising one time, and that site, in Southern California, that was dry, but that was some years ago. But it didn't lessen my experience. In fact, I really enjoyed that.
There isn't, so, you know, at an Amcard or Bellegarth event, you usually fight all day and drink all night. Well, this is more you're going to like craft and do stuff all day, and as soon as the sun goes down is when the shit hits the fan. You have to go. You're going to be probably fighting the majority of the time, to be honest. A lot of the fighting and combat happens right after sundown for some reason. Spooky.
Spooky.
but no, this is you. Once you are playing the game, you're playing. You don't really have a downtime to not be playing the game per se.
Very cool. I would like to request, I don't know how much time you have available to us, but I would like to request that you tell us a story, maybe one of your favorites of your personal experience in a game. Kind of like help us relive a moment that really.
I have so many. I could talk for hours about that.
I'm sure you could.
But the game does a really good job of creating fear, of creating horror. And some of my best times in the game have been around those moments when we've been dead ass scared of something and like hiding. And I'll bring up a story of a really early time in my game where like a friend of mine had, their character had died and this and that. So we were, oh God, I just, as I think of that, I had so many other stories pop in my head that I want to tell. But we do so many themes because the game is very themed. So like we get attacked by Jason from Friday the 13th and Krampus and everything else, and these guys are in full costume. But there was just a time where like it was very basic. We were being attacked by Zed. That's the general term for zombies. Being attacked by Zed, and some of them were very beefy and a bit more statted up, different breeds of Zed. So we have these large ones called tanks. This is super early in my career in the game, back before like my character was even fighter, and like they're tearing up the town. People are going down left and right and running away, and I hear one of my friends that like gets put down. He's screaming. When you hit 0 HP, you go into something called bleed out, where you have 5 minutes to either get brought up in some way, shape, or form, or die. And during bleed out, you can do nothing but scream. Or yell for help. So I hear a friend of mine yelling for help, and the tavern in that area, there's like a center, and there's like a road that runs around it. And I hear him on the other side of the tavern. I run over there, and I see my friend that I'm trying to help, and I see someone who is living. Me and my character have not been getting along at all, and I see him down too, and I'm like, fuck that guy. And I try not to help him. And then I get my friend back up, but then I get put down. Then everybody kind of clears the area. So I'm laying here in the street with like these 3 Zed just munching on me because they have a mechanic where these Zed are going to hang out and chew on your body until you die sometimes. And I'm just laying there screaming, dying, and then out of nowhere, this guy like Superman's with a Uncle Todd's, which is a small health potion in that game, and like runs from like a clear like football field away, gets to me, slams the potion in my mouth essentially, and then gets put on himself. And then I get up and run away. I run away to like another camp, and I find two other people hiding behind a tree, and they're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Well, I think this guy that I hate, his name's Ragnar, just died. But I also hate him, but he just saved my life, and I'm really confused. Do y'all want to hear a knock-knock joke?" And I roll into this thing because my character has an ability called Entertain, where I can help restore people's mind points, aka mana, by having a session of entertainment. My character did it through playing blackjack typically, but instead I decided to tell a series of jokes. And the first joke I told was, knock knock, and like, who's there? And I'm like, Ragnar. And I said, not Ragnar, like, not Ragnar who? And I'm like, not Ragnar because he's dead. It was bad. It was a bad joke and bad humor, but like they had a hard time not laughing and revealing our position as like zombies are crawling by and near us. Some of the more grandiose stories that I have, that's like a really basic, just like horror story.
I liked it.
This was my character went through something called an AP trial, or an advanced profession trial, which was like a year of like tests and stuff that like story put my character through, and it was for something called Overlord. Overlord is like, it's like a super prestige class from back in the day. The new system did away with APs, but this is in the older system. And I was a mayor of this 200 some person town, a recognized leader, and like I had to do all this mob boss stuff. And some of my greatest memories come from just like one of my trials that they put me through was I had to, for the whole weekend, this group of people that had to come in that were bad guys, I had to make sure they went unharmed. And they were kind of more of a neutral party, but they're obviously being assholes. And people had every reason to hit them or be violent toward them. And then my task was, if any of them come into town, they go unharmed, untouched, completely, non-targets. So me and my crew, and I had a crew of about 30 some people at the time, that were like completely like, we had our own little faction. It's called New Vegasia. And that was essentially my mob boss faction. We were like, people saw us as a mafia of town. We were very gray hat, far more black than white in a lot of cases. And some people in town didn't want me to succeed because their characters are very opposed to mine. They're good guys. My character was not a good guy per se. He had a golden heart. He cared about people. He cared about the town, but he's very Lex Luthor about how he did it. And we were given this task, and like this was 40 hours of some of the most stressful moments me as a person have ever been through. And one of the mods they sent in to test it, because they sent in several mods, like some stuff during like a combat mod and just like some very basic stuff of just like, oh, these people are walking through town, make sure they get escorted. But then they send in 20 people during like dinner time. I'm literally sitting down to eat a steak. I just cooked myself like an IRL steak. And 20 people around the corner, and a friend of mine who's actually part of my crew is like the lead NPC for it. And he's just like, "What's up, buddy?" And I'm like, "Oh, no." And I realized that there are a group of soldiers from this faction that is on shore leave, and they want to go bar hopping. We have like 7 establishments in town of different people that serve different foods and drink in town, like IRL serve foods and drink. And they decide to go bar hopping and decide to get drunk and decide to get rowdy. And then they split the party. 10 people go this way and 10 people go that way. And I'm sitting here like, oh my fucking, and like, I immediately start getting my guys in order to make sure that these guys don't get touched. And when I say touch, I'm like, they're going to throw other NPCs that are intended to fight with them, or if they're going to start a bar fight with each other, or, of course, the town, people don't like these guys. Like, these guys are somewhat like the question mark. I don't know if they're good guys or bad guys, but they're fucking with our stuff. So that was probably some of the most stressful moments that are completely non-horror, non-combat based, but incredibly stressful, because if I failed that, I would not advance in my trials. So that was, an insane moment for me as a person. And I passed it, but I was, definitely had my hand over my face of just like, oh dear God, what the hell do I do? I don't think I can make this. And they put a true onus on, on that. The town's overarching plots and stories have been anywhere from like very Wizard of Oz theme, from the Wicked Witch of the West type of deal, to our season closer of the last year was we had to defeat a super army of Final Knights had come from Vegas. So this is a regional story where like Vegasia as a superpower was rolling into the Broken Coast, aka Southern California, and we had to do something about it. And a lot of people died. Like, that was the most character death we've ever seen in the game ever. And it was a ton of fun.
Nice.
We prevailed. I got to participate in the decapitation of the final boss. But it was absolutely insane. I can tell stories all day, and it's really hard. Sometimes it can be hard to convey these role play stories. Honestly, you had to live it. And like, I come from a background of 100% combat LARP, and my first like try or two at DR, I was like, it's very wishy-washy. And then like I had one fantastic game where I got really involved with some other characters, and I never turned back. I always made sure I made the game monthly. So.
Very cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing. I can see that you've got tons of stories, and they're just going to keep popping up in your mind, and that's a great thing to be able to go home. I always appreciate that after going to events, going home and having stories from the battlefield and stuff, and with such a story focused LARP too. I imagine that is just.
Well, I do want to state, and I did put it in the slide because I wanted to explain the actual game. We do have a virtual game that is running monthly.
For sure.
if you wanted to get started, or if somebody wanted to like start building XP or earning items, they're playing the game in a very tabletop style. It's a D6 system, but they're still telling very similar stories. You just don't really have the downtime activities and some of the other more people interactions. But they're still going forward with their overarching story of the year and such, and it exists on Discord. So it's basically you're doing a tabletop LARP on Discord, and there, if you go to Dystopia Rising's SoCal's Facebook page and group, there's all the information to join and sign up. It's free to show up and just like role play and hang out, but there is a cost if you actually want to actually buy experience for your character. I could, still be playing. I'm currently not playing in the online stuff. I find myself a little busy for that, and the online's not exactly my cut because I'm just doing D&D instead during this time of COVID-19. But for those that want to try it out or figure out what their character is going to be, it's a really good time to do that.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I'll post information on that on our event page today, as well as link some people. If anybody's interested in the chat, I'll send you links and stuff to those pages. I'm also on the SoCal Dystopia Rising page. I find it very interesting. Does anyone in the chat have any additional questions for him? I have one more question that I would like for sure, but given, do you guys have anything else you'd like to add? Questions, guys? Yes, no?
I see one guy shaking his head and the other guy has his camera on. So,
well, I definitely have a question.
Sure.
My question is, Belagarth has garb, and a lot of times, I know for me, my garb has evolved over time since I've been playing. Year one, my garb was and then year two, even but there definitely is a point where I'm very proud of my kits. Learning to sew and craft and build on my kit is definitely an aspect of Belagarth that I enjoy. That aspect is prevalent in Dystopia Rising as well, because your costume
absolutely. Between costuming and crafting and armor, a lot of people make their own armor from scrap metal. Like one of my other kits, because I have multiple characters, I took took street signs and like made armor from street signs and this and that, and like you see some really good looking and insane kits. So some people, like my wife, she made all of her costuming. She was in one of the pictures. There's one. What's it? Salt lice. So salt lice is a fish person essentially, very aquatic. But like the wetsuit, she made and sewed that. She took some airsoft armor and modified it. But people really, you can see their devotion to their character and their work and their kits. Some people do a lot of store-bought stuff or just like thrifting and like make it look something, but other people go like the extra 10 miles and like they'll be wearing like UV reflective contacts, and then the hood of their costume will have a UV light in it, and their eyes will glow, and they'll have makeup on, and like it gets absolutely insane.
That's very cool. I definitely see an opportunity for people who, Bellegrim often don't get to use lots of maybe heavier materials or materials that might be a little more rigid or fragile in their kits because they have to be on the field, or they reserve it for feast. But it definitely seems like we have an opportunity in your LARP
and the other thing is that like you can have multiple characters. I have this character as the Gaussian. I got another character as a Saltwise. I have another character that was something completely different. So like you can have different kits and grow it as long as you want.
Change it up. I like that. I like having alt characters in video games, and I love the idea of having alt characters in a LARP.
Yep.
It's very neat. Wow. Well, thank you so much for your time. This is will you say your name one more time and what you like to go by for the camera?
My name is Ben. My DR name is Booker, is my main character. And the game that most Belgrim know me as is Aries.
Wonderful. Thank you, Aries, so much for your time. I know I'm super happy with it. I know I learned a lot I knew a little bit about Dystopia Rising from attending one game, but I feel like I know so much more now. This video will be made available for people on YouTube and anyone watching at home right now. Yeah, I'm very happy. Thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, so we're going to stop the recording now. 3, 2, 1, as we edit it out here. Okay, all right, should be good.
Well, I gotta go make dinner,
We're
so
still recording.
thank you
Oh
all.
man. Okay. All right. We'll edit the last little bit out. Thank you so much.
See you guys later.
We'll see you later, buddy.
Thanks
Why
for
can't I
teaching.
stop recording?
Yeah, no problem.
Bye.
Hi, Beetle. How are you, buddy? Oh, bye. You're out. All right.